Late April 2026 didn't take just one kind of legend. It didn't stay in one lane. In the space of a single week, the world lost a rock and roll Hall of Famer, a country music outlaw, a maestro who conducted some of the greatest orchestras on earth, a comic book writer whose characters now dominate the biggest movie franchise in history, a Holocaust survivor who spent 98 years proving that the human spirit cannot be broken, an NFL player who was only 35 years old with no explanation given, a soul music pioneer whose opening bass line you would recognize in 3 seconds, a football champion whose name deserves to be said louder, and a man who rose from small-town mayor all the way to a seat in the president's cabinet. 9 lives, 9 completely different worlds, and not one of them got the goodbye they deserved. And one person on this list co-created 2 of Marvel's most iconic characters, and almost nobody watching this video has ever once heard his name. That changes today. Let's get into it. Nedra Talley Ross, the last Ronette. There's a specific kind of grief that comes with being the last one left from a group. Nedra Talley Ross, the last surviving original member of the Ronettes, one of the most influential girl groups in the history of American music, passed away on April 26, 2026, at her home in Virginia. She was 80 years old, and with her passing, the original lineup that gave the world Be My Baby is now completely gone. Think about what that song meant. Be My Baby didn't just top charts, it rewired what pop music could sound like. The wall of sound production by Phil Spector, the harmonies, the yearning in every single note. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys called it the greatest pop record ever made. And Nedra Talley Ross was part of creating it, her voice woven into the fabric of a record that has never stopped playing somewhere in the world since the day it was released in 1963. She was there for Baby I Love You. She was there for the best part of breaking up. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007, alongside her fellow Ronettes, a recognition that was long overdue and deeply deserved. And then, when the spotlight faded, she didn't chase it. She walked away from pop music entirely and spent years performing Christian music, a quieter life, but one she clearly chose with her whole heart. Think about what it means to be the last one left from a group that changed music forever. The last living voice that was in those original recording sessions. The last person who could say, I was there when we made that. What does that kind of silence feel like? Nedra Talley Ross carried that weight gracefully for years, and this week she set it down. But the music world wasn't done saying goodbye this week, not by a long shot. David Allan Coe, the outlaw who wrote Anthems. There are songwriters, and then there are storytellers who happen to write songs. David Allan Coe was always the second kind. Coe died on April 29, 2026, at the age of 86, and if you don't immediately recognize his name, you absolutely recognize his work, because his words came out of other people's mouths and became some of the most iconic moments in country music history. Take This Job and Shove It, written by David Allan Coe, recorded by Johnny Paycheck in 1977. It became more than a country hit, it became a working-class war cry, a song that blue-collar workers across America adopted as their personal anthem, a song that said out loud what millions of people felt every single Monday morning, but could never quite put into words. Coe put it into 5 words and changed the culture. He also wrote Tanya Tucker's #1 hit, Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone, a completely different song in every way. Tender where the other was furious, intimate where the other was explosive. It proved that Coe wasn't just an outlaw with a chip on his shoulder. He was a genuine writer who could move between emotions with a precision that most songwriters never find. You Never Even Called Me By My Name, The Ride, Mona Lisa Lost Her Smile, the catalog goes deep and it goes hard. He was one of country music's true originals, an outlaw in every sense of the word who never apologized for a single line he wrote. He lived as wildly as his songs suggested, and he left behind a body of work that the genre will be pulling from for generations. From a man who wrote anthems for the working class to a man who spent his life conducting some of the greatest orchestras on earth. Michael Tilson Thomas, a maestro gone too soon. Michael Tilson Thomas died on April 22, 2026, of brain cancer at his home in San Francisco. He was 81 years old, and the classical music world lost one of the most irreplaceable figures it has ever produced. He served as the principal conductor of the London Symphony Orchestra. He was the music director of the San Francisco Symphony for over 2 decades, a tenure that transformed the orchestra into one of the most celebrated ensembles in the world. He was, by any serious measure, among the greatest conductors of his generation. But here's the thing about Michael Tilson Thomas that set him apart from almost every other figure in classical music. His range was genuinely, almost impossibly wide. He worked with Elvis Costello, he collaborated with Metallica, he conducted Gershwin with the same authority he brought to contemporary composers. He composed from the Diary of Anne Frank, a piece of music so emotionally devastating that audiences frequently sat in complete silence after its final note, unsure whether to applaud or simply breathe. 81 years old, brain cancer, a loss that the music world will feel for a long time. And speaking of stories that deserve far more attention than they get, the next person on this list co-created 2 of Marvel's most powerful characters in comic book history. Characters you have almost certainly watched on screen, and almost nobody knows who he was. Gerry Conway, comic book writer, author, and television screenwriter. Conway died in April 2026 at the age of 73, and the list of characters he helped bring into existence is staggering. He co-created The Punisher in 1974, Frank Castle, the skull-wearing vigilante who became one of Marvel's most complex and enduring anti-heroes, a character built on grief, rage, and the question of where justice ends and vengeance begins. A character that has never stopped being relevant because the questions he raises have never stopped being relevant. He also co-created the original Miss Marvel, the character who eventually became Captain Marvel, one of the franchise's most significant characters. 2 monsters in the franchise, 1 writer, 1 era, an extraordinary creative legacy. And then there's his DC Comics work, Power Girl, Jason Todd, the second Robin, whose death at the hands of the Joker became one of the most famous moments in comic book history. Killer Croc, Firestorm. He wrote Justice League of America for years. The characters he shaped are woven into the DNA of both major comic universes in ways that still ripple outward today. Every time those characters appear on screen, in films, in television series, in animated shows, Gerry Conway's work is the foundation underneath all of it. He deserved to be a household name. He was never quite treated like one. That was the industry's failure, not his. From the man who built Marvel's darkest hero to a woman who survived something darker than any comic book villain ever imagined. Dr. Edith Eger, Auschwitz survivor who lived to 98. Some lives are so extraordinary that telling them in a few paragraphs feels like an injustice. Dr. Edith Eger's life is one of those. Eger died on April 27, 2026, in San Diego. She was 98 years old, and the distance between where her life began and where it ended, the sheer span of survival and transformation contained in those 98 years, is almost beyond comprehension. She was a teenager in Hungary, an Olympic hopeful gymnast with her whole life mapped out in front of her. And then the Nazi occupation came. She was taken to Auschwitz. She was imprisoned. She was tortured. She watched horrors that no human being should ever witness. And she survived, not by luck alone, but by holding on to something inside herself that the camp could not reach. After liberation, she made her way to America. She earned a doctorate. She became a leading clinical psychologist specializing in post-traumatic stress disorder and spent decades helping U.S. military veterans process trauma that mirrored, in some ways, the trauma she herself had survived. She wrote The Choice, Embrace the Possible, a memoir that became an international bestseller and helped millions of readers understand that even in the worst circumstances, there is always a choice about how to respond. She was dancing at 90 years old. She was speaking publicly well into her late 90s. She gave her pain a purpose and spent almost a century using it to help others heal. She survived the worst thing human beings have ever done to each other and spent the rest of her 98 years helping others heal from their own darkness. What does a life like that actually mean? What does it say about what human beings are capable of, not just in cruelty, but in resilience? Dr. Edith Eger knew the answer. She lived it every single day. And from one extraordinary life to a loss that hit the sports world completely without warning and without explanation. Josh Mauro, the loss nobody saw coming. Some goodbyes come with no warning, no illness, no buildup, just a name in a headline and a number that stops you cold. Josh Mauro, former NFL defensive end, died on April 23, 2026. He was 35 years old. No cause of death has been reported. 35, with no explanation given. Mauro spent 8 seasons in the NFL, 6 of them as a defensive end for the Arizona Cardinals. He also played for the New York Giants, the Oakland Raiders, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. He played college football at Stanford University. He built a professional career that most athletes spend their entire lives chasing and never reach. And at 35 years old, he was gone, with no reason attached to the story. There is something uniquely difficult about a loss like this. When the cause is known, an illness, an accident, grief has somewhere to go. When there is no explanation, the mind searches for one and finds nothing. Josh Mauro was 35 years old with a full career behind him and what should have been decades still ahead. At 35 years old with no cause given, his passing is a reminder that sometimes the goodbye comes with no warning and no reason at all. The sports community felt this one deeply, and the NFL lost one of its own far too soon. Monte Coleman, Washington's forgotten champion. 3 Super Bowl rings, 16 seasons with one team, a Ring of Fame induction, and somehow, Monte Coleman never quite gets mentioned in the conversation about the NFL's greatest players. Monte Coleman died on April 26, 2026, at the age of 68, and his football legacy deserves to be spoken clearly and without qualification. He spent 16 seasons with the Washington Redskins, an almost unheard of tenure in a league where careers are short and loyalty is rarely rewarded. He was part of 3 Super Bowl championship teams. He was inducted into the team's Ring of Fame. He was, by the numbers and by the testimony of everyone who played alongside him, one of the most important pieces of one of the most dominant franchises of the 1980s. And when his playing career ended, he didn't walk away from the game. He moved to the sideline. He coached at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff and led the team to a Southwestern Athletic Conference championship in 2012. A champion as a player, a champion as a coach, a complete football life from the first snap to the last. 3 Super Bowl rings across 16 seasons, and Monte Coleman never gets mentioned in the conversation about the NFL's greatest. Does that feel right to you? Because it shouldn't. His name belongs in that conversation, and this week is as good a time as any to put it there. Tony Wilson, the man behind You Sexy Thing. Play the first 3 seconds of You Sexy Thing by Hot Chocolate. Go ahead, play them in your head right now. That bass line, that opening, you know it instantly, even if you've never once thought about who wrote it. Tony Wilson wrote it. Tony Wilson co-founded Hot Chocolate, and Tony Wilson died on April 24, 2026, at his home in Trinidad at the age of 89. Hot Chocolate were one of Britain's most beloved soul bands, a group that crossed genres and generations with an effortlessness that made it look easy and wasn't. You Sexy Thing became their signature, a song so deeply embedded in popular culture that it has been used in films, television shows, and advertisements for decades. It has never stopped playing. It never will. But Tony Wilson's songwriting went far beyond one hit. Love is Life, You Could Have Been a Lady, Emma, Brother Louie, a catalog of songs that defined an era of British soul music and reached audiences on both sides of the Atlantic. He was a co-founder, a songwriter, and a musician who helped build something that outlasted every trend that came and went around it. 89 years old, a life well and fully lived, and a bass line that will still be playing 100 years from now. Dirk Kempthorne, From Main Street to the Cabinet. Some careers in public service defy easy summary. Dirk Kempthorne's is one of them. Kempthorne died on April 24, 2026, in Boise, Idaho, after a fight with colon cancer. He was 74 years old, and the arc of his public life, from local mayor to the president's cabinet, represents one of the most complete journeys in modern American politics. He started as mayor of Boise. From there, he won a seat in the United States Senate in 1992 and served with enough distinction that in 1999, he left the Senate to run for governor of Idaho, a position he held until 2006. He then served as United States Secretary of Interior under President George W. Bush, overseeing the management of America's public lands, national parks, and natural resources at the highest level of government. He served under 7 different presidents across his career. 7. He was not a figure who chased headlines or courted controversy. He was a public servant in the truest sense of the phrase, someone who showed up, did the work, and served the people he was elected and appointed to represent. Idaho lowered its flags in his honor. They should have been lowered everywhere he ever served. 9 names, 9 completely different worlds, and a single week in late April 2026 that reminded everyone paying attention, greatness doesn't announce when it's leaving. Nedra Talley Ross was the last voice of an era that changed what pop music could be. David Allan Coe gave the working world its anthem. Michael Tilson Thomas proved that classical music belongs to everyone. Gerry Conway built heroes that billions of people have watched on screen without ever knowing his name. Edith Eger survived the unimaginable and spent 98 years turning that survival into healing for others. Josh Mauro was 35 years old with no explanation given. Monte Coleman won 3 Super Bowls and still never got the recognition his career earned. Tony Wilson wrote a bass line that will never stop playing. And Dirk Kempthorne served 7 presidents and a lifetime of communities without making it about himself. They built things, they wrote things, they coached things, they survived things, and every single one of them left something behind that the world is still carrying. Which loss hit you hardest this week? Drop their name in the comments below and tell us why. We read every single one. And if this video moved you, make sure you check out our video on the celebrity deaths from earlier in April 2026, because those stories go just as deep as the ones you just heard. You'll find it right here on The Untold Story.